Hello there, welcome. We're standing here in the green room, also known as the laundry room. Excited to have you be a part of this. This is my friend Aaron Brown, who's going to introduce me.
Thank you all for coming. Excuse me. My name is Aaron Brown.
You got to be on the camera.
And I got to be on the camera. Hi. I'm Aaron on the camera. I'm very pleased to be here with all of you, and I'm very, very excited for my friend and my colleague, Ivan. This book is a really powerful book. And I remember meeting you on the very first day of 8.5 years ago, which seems like yesterday. I'm talking like my father. And we're sitting in the break room and we're talking about how to do this thing, how to do the job right. And he's talking to me about time management and talking to me about how sometimes if you visualize a pitcher full of water, it's got rocks in it, and that water is overflowing. If that water signifies all the tasks that you have to do, or I guess the feeling of the tasks that you have to do, I should say, right? Of that overflowing and, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? And then you use this visual of taking one large rock out of that pitcher at a time and slowly dwindling it down to a more manageable degree of work. I remember that day, right? And I remember when we evolved from there. That was a conversation. There was a number of those conversations at the outset of our relationship. I remember having conversations about how to, well, be empathetic to clients. Through this process, right, all of these conversations I'm having with Ivan, you can see the intellectual playing out. You can see it coming from his mind onto the page. And eventually it turned into a blog, an online community, from having built training classes ahead of that. And now we have a book, this book that is really an evolution, in my opinion, of a conversation that Ivan's been having with himself, a relationship that he's been building with himself. I might even argue a heroic form of a relationship. Anything you've accomplished in your life, imagine it. Has it been easy? Was it a perfect straight line? Or did it come with challenges? Did it come with obstacles, things that tried to knock you off your course? I can assure you, I know, I've heard about them. They came at Ivan. And concurrently, they've been doing a remodel, by the way. So I'd like to present you with a very, very dear friend of mine, someone who I'm very proud of, and someone who I'm just super excited for. Ivan, I'm so grateful that you asked me to introduce you. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for being here today. When I was born, my parents gave me the name Ivan Solomon Farber. And my Aunt Bernice said, wow, Ivan Solomon Farber, that's an author's name. And so ever since then, I've been living with the idea that I have an author's name. And it's always been something I've wanted to do. And I appreciate you being here today to share that with me, as well as the people on Facebook Live. I see my mom on there, mom and dad and brother. I want to talk about the book a little bit. I've been working on it for a while and actually haven't talked about it very much. I'm more of a speaker actually than a writer. Now I'm a writer though. And so it's exciting to actually be able to gather energy from having conversations. Imagine writing about conversations versus having conversations about them. So the book is called Conversations. I wrote it because I think there was a need for it. I know I needed it 25 years ago when I started in the business world. And not only did I need it then, but I still need it. In fact, I use the 10 lessons that I write about every single day, and I evaluate after every single phone call that I have. Did I follow my 10 lessons? And I can assure you that each and every day, I don't. I still make mistakes. It's a good checklist to have it on my monitor, but I still make mistakes. There's still things I regret. If you think about 25 years of making mistakes, having about 2,000 conversations a year for 25 years, I've made at least 50,000 mistakes. And of course, it's not the making the mistake that's the thing you're proud of, but it's how you overcome and learn from it. And I've learned a tremendous amount from my mistakes. So thank you, Ivan, for making so many mistakes. Who did I write the book for? Well, in a very real sense, we're all relationship managers, but very specifically in the business world, there are so many books for salespeople. There are so many books for customer service people, but there's a job that a lot of people do that's an overlap and a hybrid of the two. I call that relationship manager, whether it's banker, broker, different things, but there's a real need for it. And I know that both, again, for myself, but also with all the colleagues I work with, like the avenue and the arena that we get to work in is a conversation. A conversation really drives the profitability of any company that's really a service company. The relationship manager is the face, the voice of the company. They are the ones that it's decisive if the client decides to grow their business, shrink their business, terminate their business, add business. And so I have the good fortune to be able to share those lessons with others. There's 10 lessons in the book. And I've got 10 fingers, so it's perfect. The first 5 lessons are things that I've learned. They're kind of intangible skills, elements to a conversation that I've found again and again. When I don't include all 5 elements, then it doesn't go as effective as others. The first, and it's always built upon this, is rapport, liking and trusting others, liking and trusting the person in that specific conversation. The second is using questions skillfully. I have found that a good question is like a paddle, and a lot of people don't use the questions effectively. They might as well not have a paddle. The third lesson is to listen. And we all need to learn how to listen better. There is something in the book where I have 14 ways to stop yourself from interrupting, because the first step of listening is not interrupting. The fourth chapter is to focus on needs. What I find in the business world is everybody gets focused on topics. It's easy to go on the topic, especially in the financial service space. But underneath every topic is needs. And so my approach is very needs-based. When I forget to focus on someone's needs, it just isn't as effective. And then the fifth of the first hand is exercising self-control. Because without self-awareness and self-control, you're not building rapport, you're not using questions skillfully, you're using them bluntly usually, and I have done a lot of that. You're not listening, you're not focusing on needs. So that's the first half of the book. The second half of the book is kind of like the science and process part. So the first part you could say is more the art and the softer skills. And the second, I've seen this in the Karate Kid. The second part is process and formula rated, and I put forth a 4-step process for people to be able to use, and is adaptable. It's strong enough to really support a business conversation, but flexible enough that you could use it short, long, what have you. Chapter 6 is called Prepare and Plan, and it's amazing how many conversations happen without a plan. I know that I still do sometimes, but certainly did more of just wing it. Say, I'm good enough, I'll wing it. About 10 years ago, I had a mentor that looked me in the eye and he said, "You're not good enough to wing it." I took that to heart. The next 4 and last chapters of the book are the model to create a conversation, to get agreement on what the conversation is for, to explore the client's needs. Too often, someone will make a comment, and what do? We make an assumption. It's so much better to really explore and really empathize and understand where someone's coming from. The third part is to address. And when we talk about address, I'm talking specifically about 2 things. One, addressing needs, but also addressing objections. Because it's a really natural part of a conversation for someone to object to things, especially when you're putting forth solutions. And that's great. And instead of resisting it, or like saying, I don't want to talk to that person, they're going to object, having a science for being able to deal with and know what you're dealing with, I just find really helpful. And then the fourth part of the model is to resolve, to take and put it all together and come up with agreement for action. Because at the end of the day, when you're having a business conversation, the net effect is you want some kind of growth to come out of it. Now, as a mnemonic device, which everybody likes, you can't do much with CEAR, but if you throw an L in there, you have the mnemonic device clear. And that is really part and parcel of having an approach where you get clarity on what you're creating with the other person, where you explore fully such that you have a clear, complete, and mutual understanding with that person. You address their needs, and then you resolve and come to agreement for action. So that's what the book is about. It's been quite a journey, so I could probably stand up here and talk for a long time. But what I'd like to do is, at this point in time, take questions or comments or comments that you may have.
So is it mainly geared towards business? Or were the common people outside of business growth?
So there is an author's note in the early part that said, "Wow, this is primarily written for business people."
Yeah.
It applies to each and every relationship, even your closest relationships. But as my parents told me, I'm not a relationship expert. And so it was important. Actually, the word business got in there. Thank you, Mom and Dad.
Yeah.
Because of the concern. And really, of course, the market for speaking,
Yeah.
coaching, training is the business market. But yeah, I do think
It can
it
overlap.
can, sure. I use it. Wendy knows that I use it.
Right? Page 16, line 8.
What other questions do you have or comments? You're not on camera, so there's not really pressure. I've never done Facebook Live before, and I have 6 or 7 people. That's okay, because it'll get reposted.
Yeah, Ivan, you said that you think about planning for conversations,
Yes.
and I've recently gotten really interested in improv, and I don't know if you're familiar with improv practices, but I'm just curious, like how, I don't know, if any of that, how that folds into your practice, and if you're not familiar, you might.
No, I mean, from what I understand of improv, having not done it, is that it looks like they're winging everything, but there are some formulas. Actually, I saw Stephen Colbert talking about this week. Is there some formulas and things that you pull out of your repertoire? And that is something that I write about in chapter 6, is you're going to improvise, you're going to speak extemporaneously, but you're going to have a pull from a repertoire. And so in financial services, because I've had 50,000 conversations about money, I sometimes call it pull an arrow out of your quiver, and have sequences that I use. But yeah, the model of, creating doesn't mean, it is a method and a process, and it's somewhat a formula, but you're going to create it with the other person. You're going to create rapport, you're going to listen to them. So it's uniquely created, just like an improv thing would be uniquely created, even though you might be pulling from something.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tanya.
Yeah.
How do you feel today?
How do I feel today? It's a roller coaster of emotions. Like, I've had the author's name for 46 years, 8 months, and 7 days, but who's counting? And I didn't write publicly until the early 2016, when I started posting articles on LinkedIn. So then that was great. What I like about that is you get immediate feedback. But I've been solitary for a long time, this book, and for those of you who don't know, or Karen Lynn Marr has been my book coach for the last, I would say, 16 months. And so has heard the stuck and helped me through the stuck and given me a process. So it's really, I'm an extrovert. So when you're in the computer, it's not that. So how I feel right now is, I feel like I've been let go, like out of a dungeon, and onto a magic carpet ride. Like people that I don't know are buying the book. That's kind of cool. And now I get to market it. Someone asked me, "Are you going to write another book right away?" And I said, "No." I put a 2-year moratorium on book writing, but I am going to write articles. I'm going to flesh out my new website, conversations.biz. So I'll be doing that, and that'll be a good way to market. I'm going to approach media. Because my vision for this book is that it makes a difference in the business world. That perhaps it reshapes the way people think about their conversations, give more thought to it, give more consideration and caring to people. So with that, thank you for your questions. I once again want to thank everybody for being here. Thank all of you, both watching it live and watching it on Facebook, not live, later on. I want to ask for your help in being advocates for the message. I have no idea if I'm going to sell a couple thousand. I don't have no idea if I'll sell a couple hundred or a couple 100,000 or more. I do believe that what I have to share with the world is going to really help a lot of people, and that's my motivation. So thank you for being here today. With that, I want to introduce and welcome up to make some comments my book coach and publisher, Karen Lynn Marr. Oh, wait,
Oh,
photo
we
op.
gotta get a photo op. Awesome. It's a real honor for me to be here to help launch this book. It's been an awesome 16 months and challenging as well. And as I was thinking about what to say today, I wanted to have a theme of really courage and humility about what the last 16 months has been about, which I also think is relevant to a lot of people who take on the job and the challenge of writing a book. I learned about Ivan from Michael Van Sant. He called me, he said, you know, there's this guy, he's writing a book, he's gonna make an appointment with you. And we had our first appointment, and I could tell that you were someone that I wanted to work with. And so we set about talking about, you know, what did he want to accomplish, a lot of rapport building, figuring out, you know, what was this thing of a book that he had already written. Really, he says, you know, I've written a book, you know, where do we go from here? So I got a copy of the book, of the manuscript, and the conversation that stands out to me the most and we've had many. I was in my office up in Seattle area, and he was driving. Is it Brooklyn?
Yeah,
New York? Brooklyn.
Driving across Long Island.
Right, and I knew that I had a hard message to share with him. And basically, I told him that the manuscript reflected all of his ideas about what would be in this book, but he really needed to start over. And he pulled over, stopped the car. He said, hold on just a minute, I need to stop the car. And I said, I love that you have done the first thing that every author needs to do, which is to, you know, do a brain dump of what it is that you have to say about this topic. And we set about then going into a planning process. And he got absolutely clear about his message. He got very clear about his audience, because one of the issues was he wasn't clear about who was this book written for. It definitely is relevant to a wide variety of people, but any book needs to have a specific audience, and then you know who you're talking to. Yeah. And when he got that kind of clarity, the book started to unfold. And you know, I just want to acknowledge you for taking on that planning process and really starting over, and then rewriting. And I didn't hear from him then for several months. I can't remember all the time. You probably have all the timing in your head. But he came back, you know, with another manuscript, and then we entered into the revision process, which I think Ivan views as even a whole nother rewrite, like starting over again, which the magic of a book that is so great really happens in the revision, when people start reading it and giving feedback, and then and those people who are your audience. So you did a ton of work, and we knew when we first started talking that 2018 was the year of your book. And here it is, December, and it came true. So I acknowledge you for having courage, having humility, having belief in the work that we were doing together, and just getting to work and doing the work.
There was a conversation we had where I said, am I going to really finish this? I don't know if it was between rewrites 2 and 3 or 3 and 4, but you shared with me that you worked with over 80 authors, and that there was only 2 that didn't complete, and those 2 were people who just didn't want to do the work. And so I was willing to do the work and work and work, and I knew I'd finish. And then there was the conversation I'll also never forget, is this August, when I said, I feel done with chapters 1 through 7, but there are 2.5 chapters, including the introduction and conclusion, that I'm just stuck. And we use you shared with me the story of the Seattle to Portland ride,
All right.
where, of course, you start in Seattle, you get to.
I got to St. Helen.
You got to St. Helen.
Thought
You
I
think-
was done.
Yeah.
I mean, it's only a little ways.
So we had lots of good conversations where I said, well, yeah, if you were doing the hood to coast, I made it down hood, made it through Portland, and now I'm kind of stuck at the coastal range. It definitely was a journey, and for me, not just a 2-year journey, but really just a lifelong journey. So with that, I want to just wrap up. Did you have anything else you wanted to say?
Except congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Facebook.